Y'all, how did you get in there? Ugh. Come with me. We have a lot to discuss. Hey guys, hi. Welcome back to my channel. I'm Shelly, and if you are new here, then welcome. I would be so happy if you subscribed, if you like these kinds of bookish, silly, lighthearted videos from someone like me. But if you're subscribing to me, then it would be, it would be me, not someone else. Not someone like me, it would be actually me. Okay, we're getting very existential. This is not an existential video. This is all about my comfort read. My type of comfort read, okay? So, I was thinking about it. Some people love their romances, romance novels. Some people love their erotica. Some people love their cozy reads. Some people like their cozy mysteries. Other people are enthralled by thrillers. And then there are those who find comfort in dystopian or even YA literature. Y'all know what mine is? Well, you probably do because of the title of the video, but my comfort read, the read that I go to when I don't know what to read, is memoir. So I don't really talk a lot about my memoir reading because it is not the most edifying read for me. I look at what will be the most entertaining and I might be able to learn something from. But this means I have read a lot of entertaining memoirs. Ones that will make you laugh, cry, maybe grow as a person. The first book I'm going to recommend, you will definitely grow as a person, almost regardless of where you're at in your life. Now I know memoirs, some of them can be very teachable. They're there to teach you about an industry, about the ins and outs of something. No, I am there for the juiciness. I am there for the gossip, the scandal, the internal turmoil. I am there for people to go, oh my goodness, my life was so hard and look at where I've come from and how far I've gone. That is what I read memoir for, okay? So, what got me into memoir? What got me into memoir? Well, hang on a second. All right. Okay, so what got me into memoir? My mother, my wonderful, amazing, sweet, fantastic mother. Mom, I love you if you're watching. So my mom is almost exclusively a nonfiction reader. So in many ways my dad is too, though he dabbles in more fiction. It's like fiction, nonfiction split. Okay, my mother though. My mother reads almost exclusively nonfiction. She always said she wants to read about something real, not about someone's made up life. And so thus she has read a good deal of memoirs. She's not the biggest reader, but she's consistent. She consistently reads several memoirs or biographies or nonfiction books a year, but memoir is like her bread and butter. So when I started to get into reading, I really wanted to connect with her in many different ways. And since she is a memoir reader and a memoir lover, I started getting into the genre as well. And I really found myself enjoying it. Now, most though not nowadays, but many of the memoirs that I read, I actually listen to. Because I feel like I said, I'm all into the juiciness, I'm all into the gossip, and I want it to feel like a gossip session. So what I do is I put my headphones in and I feel like I am the receiver, the listener to somebody who is telling me a very juicy tale, okay? So, but my memoirs, the memoirs that I'm gonna talk about, they really range. They range from serious, important, humanity-inducing to light, fluffy, sweet, kind-hearted, okay? So we're gonna get a range today, a nice big range, all right? The first memoir I want to talk about is the most important. If you were going to pick up one memoir from this list, it is the one, and I've talked about it before on my channel, and it's the most serious, okay? So, it is Elie Wiesel's Night. Elie Wiesel is a Holocaust survivor. He actually passed in the last couple of years, and he dedicated his life to writing about humanity. He even won the Nobel Peace Prize for his work on his writings about the Holocaust. And Night really follows his journey living through concentration camps and working so hard to grip and maintain some sort of humanity in such a dehumanizing situation. He also was sent to these concentration camps with his dad, so some of it has to do with his relationship with his dad, but really most importantly is the fact that he is a fantastic prose writer. He can write prose like no other. There's just a musicality and a beauty to his writing, and all that is set in this harrowing, important, and life-affirming and life-altering situation where he is truly fighting for his heart, his body, and his soul, okay? So if there is one book, it's short, it's teeny. Y'all, I love this book so much that I gave it to my mom. She loved it so much that she gave it to my aunt. I don't know where it went from there, but it's amazing. Required reading for literally everybody. Yeah, I really love the book, and if there is one book that you take from my list, it would be Night. Okay, so let's talk quickly about 3 Bildungsroman memoirs. So the memoir that has to do with the coming of age story, which is one of my favorite tropes, and it's even better when it is done in a true story, or disregard the quotations, in a true story format. So the first one is The Glass Castle by Jeanette Walls. Jeanette Walls tells her story about her really honestly very harrowing and odd childhood with her outlier parents, one of which is her father, who has a very unhealthy relationship with alcohol, and the other is her mother, who is an artist and an eccentric. They are both incredibly poor because both of her parents don't work, and the children, along with her parents, move all around the country, the United States that is, and they basically just try and make it. One of the things that I love about this memoir is not only Jeanette Walls' determination to get herself out of this situation and out of poverty, but she's very creative and actually quite humorous in her writing in the ways that she figures out how to survive. The other great thing are her sibling bonds. She is able to really, the siblings, because they can't rely on her parents, they really cling to one another during their childhood in order to survive such a weird and odd time. Now, if you've already read The Glass Castle, then I would also recommend Educated by Tara Westover. Tara Westover, similarly to Jeanette Walls, she lives with 2 very outlierish parents. They're a bit extremist. Her father really has some extremist tendencies, so much so that his children don't have birth certificates. They're never sent to public school. They really have to learn how to educate themselves, and they're living on this plot of land in the United States where they don't have a ton of contact with the outside world. So they live in this very insular family, and Westover's story is basically how she got educated, which was her ticket out of this really odd and strange family dynamics and family relationship. It's a good story. My one critique for most memoirs written by young people is that often they don't have enough time in between the last event in their memoir and where they are today. So the events in the memoir don't have as much context. And I would say that for Westover's last 40 or 50 pages, when I read this a few years ago, you can tell that she has a more and more difficult time contextualizing what her childhood means the closer she gets to the age that she is now. So and I would actually, if there was a young memoirist, or if you're thinking about being a memoirist, I would say wait, like take copious notes now and then just wait. Okay, the third book that is a Bildungsroman is a little bit different and also incredibly important, and one of my favorite reads last year, if not my favorite read last year. It is Ta-Nehisi Coates' Between the World and Me. Coates writes 3 literary essays that are directed to his son about what it means to be a Black man in America. He talks about experiences that shaped him, the ways that he grew, and in the ways in ways that he grew that he didn't realize that he needed to grow. So there's a point in college when he just realizes that he meets his first lesbian, and the world like basically opens up for him, because he didn't realize that women could love men and women, or women can love women, that men can love men, and that it's this true and harmonious love. That is a very small portion of the book. Mostly his essays are writing to his son, telling his son what it is going to be like, or what it has been like for him as a black man in America, and all of the things that haven't been available for him, all of the ways that he's had to change and grow, and in the ways that he feels protected, not only over his own body, but over his son and his son's body. It's a really interesting and engaging memoir. Again, it's a slim little book, and it's very squat, but Ta-Nehisi Coates is a giant of a writer. He is definitely one of those thoughtful, thought-provoking, and engaging authors that will not disappoint. Again, I think this should be required reading in all schools today. Okay, let's pivot to some nature writing. Some books that are about nature, set in nature, and one of which will not come to a surprise to any of you who are regular viewers of this channel. If not, I have mentioned this book maybe 50 times already, but it is Cheryl Strayed's Wild. Her memoir, Wild, talks about her journey on the Pacific Crest Trail a few years after her mother's unexpected death from cancer. When Strayed's mother died, she really went on a path of self-destruction, and from there she wanted to essentially save herself and get back to the woman that her mother raised her to be. So what she did was that she decided, kind of on a whim, kind of planning, but without any experience, to hike 1,100 miles on a national trail called the Pacific Crest Trail, which runs from the California and Mexico border all the way up to the Washington-Canadian border, but she hikes portions of portions of the trail that are in California and in Oregon. What's great about her memoir is that she kind of, you watch her grow. You watch her grow as not only a hiker, but a human being, somebody who's reflective and interesting. Cheryl Strayed is smart. She actually cast herself and created her book as the hero's journey. She casted herself as the hero. So she actually makes her character at the beginning of the book pretty despicable. And then from there, she meets all of these people along the way that help her change and grow into someone a little more likable, quite a bit more likable, and somebody who is a little more reflective and can really contextualize what her mother's death meant to her in her life. It's a phenomenal book, and if you haven't read it, it's just really, really enjoyable. The second one is James Herriot's, and I can't tell if it's autofiction. I think it's billed as his memoir, but I'm not really sure. But it's All Creatures Great and Small. I listened to this book, I think earlier in the year, but I'm actually not really sure at this point. And it's his story about when he was a young and brand new veterinarian in the countryside of England. And he is learning how to deal with small town people, with small town ideas. He has come from a veterinary school that has more modern techniques, and yet sometimes the farmers don't trust him or don't believe him. He works for someone who's a bit of an egomaniac and often changes his mind based on his mood. And also he also works for / with his boss's brother Tristan. I forget his boss's name, but his boss's brother Tristan also works with him at the veterinary practice, who's always trying to get out of work, who's always sleeping during the day and having some really fun nights with women. It's actually billed as, I think, a children's book, but really it's just a delight, and it really talks about the care of animals, what is humane for them, even though we may not want it, and the impacts of animals in our lives. But it's done in this really sweet and lighthearted way. So if you like animals, James Herriot is your man. Okay, let's talk about two books that really have a lot to do with one another, in that they were written by a father and son duo, and they were published and released on the same exact day. So basically, you're getting two sides of the same story, but one from the father's perspective and the other from the son's perspective. The books are Tweak, Growing Up on Methamphetamines by Nick Sheff, and A Beautiful Boy by David Sheff. So Nick Sheff's book came out, and it's actually quite popular among teens. It is his memoir about being a drug addict. I always knew that I didn't want to do drugs, but it really was affirming for me when I read Nick Sheff's book. Well, listen to it rather, because he talks about how when you feel happiness, when you get a dopamine rush, it is like a little sparkler, a little flame, little tiny flame that goes off in your brain. And when you are on heavy drugs, it is like fireworks going on in your brain. And when I read that / listened to that line, I realized for the first time that I never wanted to mess my brain up in that way. And I was never, ever, 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 ever gonna touch hard drugs, even though I never had planned to. That was really affirming as to why I would never, ever do drugs. But the story is really all about his on and off relationship with drugs and his on and off relationship with his father because he's on and off drugs. And it really explores his story. The book is a roller coaster ride. I mean, it is almost, I couldn't stop listening to it because it's like, well, what's going to happen next? And are you going to find the next hit for drugs? And I hope you don't. And the friends he makes are really just awful and terrible and lie to him. And I mean, the whole thing is just, it's like going down this spiral with Nick Sheff as he is getting sucked deeper and deeper into the drug world. Now, he did write the book, so he clearly was healthy enough to write the book. So, something to think about. Now, if this is really just not sounding like your thing, then stay away, because I think my mom picked it up and she said she found it really disturbing. The second book, though, is Beautiful Boy by David Sheff, and he talks about his love for his son and watching his son go on and off of drugs and recovery and being able to support somebody and loving them and not knowing what to do. And it really talks about his grief and his relationship with a son that is not there in his mind. It was really an important book, I believe, for the time because he really spoke honestly about somebody who deals with loving someone and then not knowing what to do because they're in this habit that is just horrible and that destroys families. So, and then he also talks about his role in Nick's life that maybe would have led him to drugs, things like that, which is really important for, I believe, David to own, as well as for him to talk about with and open the conversation for families who have and do suffer with those who have addiction. So a really important and good books. David Sheff is definitely a better writer, but Nick Sheff's story was way more fast-paced and a quicker read. Okay, so the last book really has to do with one of my favorite reads this year so far, and I actually talked about it recently, and it is Unfollow by Megan Phelps Roper. Unfollow tells the story of the Westboro Baptist Church, which is located here in the United States in the state of Kansas, I believe. Kansas? I will let you know if I'm wrong. Okay, so the Westboro Baptist Church was founded by Fred Phelps, and he founded this church, and they are most known for their picketing campaigns where they hold up signs with the awful slur, God hates fags. Yes, I know, it's horrible. If you go to godhatesfags.com, that is the Westboro Baptist Church's website domain, which they are still functioning and alive and well today. So this family really got into picketing. Their campaign slogan is God hates fags. They continue to write that and obscene slurs on their signs, and they hold it out on street corners in order to tell people about the wrath of God. So this all spurred from the Calvinistic religion. So Calvinism is a very specific branch of religion that follows the acronym. Well, they follow the Bible, but through the lens of John Calvin's teaching, and he's probably known for the acronym TULIP, which stands for Total Depravity, Unconditional Election, Limited Atonement, Irresistible Grace, and Perseverance of the Saints. And under this belief, they believe that God has chosen all of those who are going to be saved, and that he has predestined all of those who are going to heaven, so free will essentially doesn't exist. Now, I grew up with portions of my life as a Calvinist, and so the message, the idea, the theology behind it was really intriguing to me. But what Megan Phelps Roper's grandfather did, Fred Phelps, is that he took that idea and he was saying, well, it doesn't matter what our message, how we say our message, because God's people will always find him. So that means our message can be hateful, ugly, wrong, slurring, all of that. And if God really wanted to work on the hearts of that man, then they will come into the fold. And so that's what the whole idea is about. Now, you might be thinking, these people are probably pretty not educated, they're not very smart. No, y'all, no. Fred Phelps either had 10 or 11 kids, I can't remember at this point, but out of that, like 8 or 9 of them became lawyers, practicing, functioning lawyers. They are lawyers in practice, and they still are lawyers today. They have argued in front of the Supreme Court. Fred Phelps himself was honored by the NAACP for his civil rights activism. It is weird. It's so weird because he has won awards for that of fighting for civil rights. In the 60s, he was just a feat, y'all. So on the one hand, he's done all this good in the world, and then on the other hand, he started this church, which mostly has his family members who spread this hateful and horrible message. They have even been known to protest funerals of dead soldiers and hold up signs that say, "Thank God for dead soldiers." Now, the story is about Megan Phelps Roper, who was part of this family and was very, very involved in the church. And it really is all about her change. And the subtitle, I'm not giving it away, is Loving and Leaving Extremism. And so it's her journey of loving and being in the church and the change she goes through in order to leave the church. It's one that is heartfelt, harrowing, with long biblical passages that have to do with her journey. Really, really, really interesting. One of the things that I love about Megan Phelps Roper's writing is that she talks about the complicated relationship of still loving her family and yet having to leave them. So it's not this straightforward thing. She didn't leave hateful or with malcontent or ill will in her heart, but at the end of the day, she had to leave. And you have to read the book to find out their family structure, which is fascinating, the way that they interacted with each other, and the way that she feels about her parents now. I was really, really into Megan Phelps Roper to the point where I listened to just about every single podcast that she was ever interviewed on and watched every single YouTube video that she's ever been on, including the ones where she is still a part of the church and the ones where she's not a part of the church. Her change is mind-blowing and definitely worth a read. She is a fantastic author, and if you listen to the audiobook, she narrates it herself, and she has really, really, really a fluid way of speaking, unlike me. Just kidding, kind of. Okay, so that's it. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you will enjoy your nonfiction November. I know that I love memoirs, and these are just a handful of the ones that I've read and loved. But please tell me about your favorite memoirs down below. I would love to know. I kind of am up for anything, and yeah, I guess that's it. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all in my next one. Bye, guys.